So here's an interesting statistic. Listen to this. MTA CEO, that's the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, CEO Jano Lieber, who spoke alongside Governor Hochul on Wednesday, said that 38 people were arrested for crimes against transit employees last year, and those suspects had over 600 prior arrests. So citing NYPD data, Lieber says that 1% of subway suspects are responsible for well over 20% of the crime on New York subways. And I think you and I have talked about this in the past. I think there was an article that we reviewed years ago where the guy's point was, and we were talking about things like broken window policy and that kind of stuff, where what you're really, when you talk about crime in our, well, around the country really, but in our, particularly in our inner cities, the vast majority of the crime that is taking place is committed by an infinitesimally small fraction of the overall public, right? The number of criminals in the country is actually fairly small. And an even smaller, a tiny subset of those people are the ones who are committing the majority of the crimes because they're repeat offenders. And
yeah, it's funny how if somebody commits a minor crime and you put them behind jail, they can't commit worse crimes. But if you let them out, they just learn how to do worse things somehow.
And that's, you talked about, I remember you talked about this in a previous episode too, about the whole idea of broken window policy, where if you're, if you are hard on these softer crimes that people are being allowed to basically get away with no bail, you're likely to catch somebody who's either committed a crime in the past that's much worse or is going to commit something much worse in the future. Right?
Right.
This article points out, Mayor Adams points out that those repeated offenders, those 38 suspects, were tied to 1,100 other crimes. Not counting the assaults on the transit workers. 1,100 other crimes by just 38 people. Now extrapolate that out to the entire criminal population, all the crimes being committed in the city of New York. How, if we could control by doing, putting people in jail and keeping them there, control that tiny percentage, that 1% of suspects, what kind of an effect would that have? I mean, if you take their race out of the equation, which they won't do.
Right.
But if you take their race out of the equation and look at it objectively and just say, okay, you've committed this crime, we're putting you in jail, how many other crimes are going to be avoided?
Yeah, it's this fascinating idea that if you enforce the law, crime goes down.
That's a crazy idea. Where did you get that? Who ever heard of such a thing?
I just came up with it. I must be a genius.